All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone. So this is everything you ever wanted to know about PowerShell. Today we'll have a panel of both community experts and PowerShell team members. We're currently still working on getting Joey into the session. And I'd like to give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves. I'll start it off. My name is Jaap Grasser. I'm a developer advocate at Rubrik, involved in the PowerShell community for a couple of years already. And then I'd like to hand it over to Bonnie. Bonnie?
Sorry about that. Hi, I'm Bonnie. I am an IT manager out of Chicago. I'm also the organizer, well, co-organizer with my other organizers of the Chicago PowerShell user group. And I am also on the DevOps PowerShell board. And I guess I will hand it over to Sydney.
Sure. Hi, I'm Sydney. I am a PM on the PowerShell team, and I own most of our tooling vertical. So projects like our editor services and VS Code extension, PowerShell Get Gallery, our notebook experience, secret management. So pretty much any project that happens outside of the engine. And I'll hand it over to Rob.
Hi, my name is Rob. I used to be a production SQL DBA, and now I just help people automate things. I'm also one of the organizers of the PowerShell Conference Europe. And I shall hand it over to Kyle.
Hi, I'm Kyle Ruddy. My day job is at HashiCorp in the technical marketing group, but I'm here because I'm a longtime PowerShell fanatic, first-time Ignite attendee, and automator of all the things. Plus, I'm an MVP for the cloud and data center management area, so I still find great enjoyment out of that. I will hand it back to Jaap.
Muted, and now I'm unmuted. So the format of the session is going to be that we'll be taking questions from the audience and give it to the panel, and whoever feels most confident in answering the question will be able to just grab it. And we can just keep it interactive. So if any one of you wants to add something on top, feel free to unmute. And we already got some questions in. One of the questions is, where do we go? Where can we see? The published questions. So one of the questions is, how close are we to no longer needing the Windows compatibility module for PowerShell 7? Would you like to take that one, Sydney?
Sure, yeah, I can take that one. So with .NET 5, .NET kind of made the claim that this was really their as far back as they were going to go in terms of investing heavily in compatibility. And so with .NET 5, you really saw the convergence of the two .NET paths with Core and with previous versions of .NET Framework. And so similarly, PowerShell has had a similar path. And so with 7, the release of 7, you saw us really go a lot further towards compatibility. If you want to know specifics in terms of our progress around module compatibility, check out aka.ms/modulecompat, and that'll give you a really detailed look as to where we are in terms of compatibility for specific modules.
Okay. Another one we got, is there any progress on the new DSC engine? Anyone involved with DSC except Sydney? Do you actually work on DSC?
I don't specifically work on DSC, but I do know that there has been an investment in DSC recently. And in particular, in the upcoming PowerShell 7.1, there will be some DSC-related experimental features that will be available, and we hope to have those as non-experimental and full features beginning in the 7.2 release.
Okay, then we have another question for any of the other panelists. This one's about AutoHotkey. For those of you who don't know AutoHotkey, it's an automation tool mostly focused on GUI automation and using hotkeys. Has any one of you ever used PowerShell for automating hotkeys or sending hotkeys directly from PowerShell? I see a no from Rob. Bonnie, Kyle? Well then, I'll take this question. So does PowerShell have any hotkey capabilities? Yes, it does. For example, you can use send keys. I think it's part of some kind of I don't know what it's called. But if you would Google send keys, you can actually send keys directly to from PowerShell, and you can use it to interact. And I know some people that have used it to log into websites by launching a browser, doing tab 5 times, and then entering their credentials. So the capabilities are there. From my experience, AutoHotkey is definitely a stronger tool for if you would like to do that kind of automation. And then we had another one. This one's from Joshua King. He has 2 questions for us. So if you could change one thing about PowerShell, what would it be? And if you haven't, why haven't you opened a GitHub issue about it yet? So I think anyone in the panel can take this one and give their take on this. I'll start out with Kyle.
Probably one of the bigger things that I had looked at when it comes to PowerShell and in terms of new features, I was really excited when Core came out because my daily system is a Macintosh. So being able to start and run PowerShell from that system was really exciting. However, I'm a big VMware user. I use vSphere almost every day. And so one of the issues with Core was the inability to keep or continue using the credential store, which is basically a way to store your credentials locally on your system, so I didn't have to input them every single time. However, here recently there's been some updates and improvements to secret management in relation to PowerShell 7. So I think Sydney's kind of ahead of the game here and kind of took care of this even before that. But I do know that there were lots of issues that were opened against this particular item as well, and I was certainly happy to comment on a lot of those, as well as some of the other folks within the VMware community who ran into this similar issue.
Bonnie?
So my least favorite thing about PowerShell, I guess with Core it got a lot better, because before it was like it was a hassle to have to add all of the different modules that you needed, and it got a lot better with Core. So I really don't hate it anymore. It was a little annoying, and having to install them all locally. I guess the new, yeah, honestly, I don't have anything that really I can say annoys me about it, or I have trouble with right now. I'm actually heavy on Exchange PowerShell and Active Directory PowerShell, and for the things that, I guess, because those commandlets are pretty old. Well, not old. They're like what, over a decade old. So they work pretty well for me. I can't really say I have anything that I need right now.
Excellent. So Rob, we have another question in the chat. Someone wants to know how they can best start learning PowerShell. I think you would be the right person to answer that one.
So, thank you so much. The one thing I would change about PowerShell Core is the addition of CLOM objects, by the way. And the reason I haven't opened a GitHub issue is because I only realized yesterday when I tried to automate PowerPoint. I thought it was cool. Learning PowerShell. I started learning PowerShell because I needed to do something. And the way somebody said you could do this with PowerShell, and I went, okay, and I started working out how to do it. So I honestly believe that the best way of learning PowerShell is to have a task to do, but that's what works for me. So your best option is to decide what your best learning method is. For me, it was actually finding a task and then trying to do it with PowerShell. PowerShell is absolutely brilliant at enabling you to help yourself. So you can use get-help and you can get all of the help about the function within PowerShell itself. And then if you understand how to use get-command and get-member, then you can explore the commands and the objects that you receive, and you can begin to learn what it is you're getting and how you can best use them. Otherwise, if you prefer learning in a different method, then Pluralsight obviously has some great learning. Microsoft Learn has some great learning. And Yap himself has a blog that I frequently send people to. Look for Yap Brasser and learning resources, and you will find it there.
So are you saying, Rob, that you're a hands-on guy? Is that
Absolutely.
what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, and I just see that Joey has also joined the chat. So Joey, would you like to give a quick intro who Joey is?
Hey, thanks so much. No worries. Yeah, it looks like I had 2 MSFT events accounts somehow. So hey everybody, I'm Joey. I'm a program manager for PowerShell, and happy to answer any of the questions around PowerShell 7, the engine, and PowerShell. I'm seeing lots of great questions fly by. So yeah, please keep them coming. And are there any that were backed up on here? I apologize. I was signed out there for 2 minutes switching accounts.
No problem at all. So I think a nice one to do is PowerShell is a favorite tool of hackers. Can you explain a bit about securing PowerShell and what kind of features we have for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So PowerShell is very often used as a what we call post-exploitation tool. In that basically, if you've already taken ownership of some kind of device, you've exploited, you've locally escalated yourself. Hackers love PowerShell, or used to love PowerShell for many of the same reasons that you all love PowerShell, namely that it's really good at doing things in an automated way on a machine. So if I want to, for instance, collect all the credentials on a machine, I can do that with PowerShell only if I've already, exploited the machine in some way to gain control of it. The reason that hackers have not liked PowerShell as of late from PowerShell 5 going forward is largely because the logging, auditing, and anti-malware features in PowerShell were enhanced in version 5. So specifically, we have features like tamper-proof logs in ETW that are fully encrypted and signed so that you're basically not able to go and modify logs after the fact without an admin being aware of that. And you keep a very detailed record of the actions that user has made on the machine. And similarly, we've got tons of, it's called anti-malware scripting, AMSI, I'm forgetting the I here, but awesome feature that basically detects all kinds of signatures in PowerShell scripts that are used for exploitation. So it's becoming less and less popular with hackers and more popular among people who are on the blue team or that are playing defense with PowerShell. So you see often in the community people turning PowerShell off as a security thing, and that is not a great security practice because you're really not defending yourself against the actual tools that are used to exploit a machine.
Okay, thank you for that one. And I'd like to direct this one at Sydney. Which feature is not on the roadmap that you would like to actually be there?
Oh, that's a great question. What feature would I love to have that's not currently on the roadmap? I mean, okay, this is kind of boring and probably not considered a feature, but I personally would love to just spend tons and tons of time building up our testing and automation in all of our repos, just so that we can kind of strap down and make sure that even with our smaller projects, that we have the time to get really high quality outputs. I mean, of course we do, but sometimes we rely on our early users to get that full feedback.
Yeah, testing and automation is something that that I think most of us would like to improve. I can definitely make some steps with with our internal repositories as well. Let's see what kind of questions we have. So I'm seeing a lot of questions about the Azure AD modules and Office 365. Let's see. How about this one? Are there any plans to ensure that all PS Core modules will work on macOS?
That's a good one.
I can probably take that one. You know, all is a very big word, right? So obviously, I think there are a number of Windows Server modules, for instance, that don't make a ton of sense to be on macOS. They're reliant on Win32 APIs that are specific to Windows and that will likely never be ported to macOS. However, as we've moved to the cloud, vast majority of modules we'd ideally like to work on as many platforms as possible. So for instance, Azure PowerShell is fully cross-platform and works on Windows, Mac, and Linux. You know, Office 365 is sort of in a still a gradiated state where some of the modules work great across all the platforms, but ideally we'd like to get some of them, you know, namely modules like Exchange Online or Azure AD to be fully macOS compatible. However, going forward, for scenarios like Azure AD, you should very much look at the Microsoft.graph set of modules, which I think is really going to be sort of the more future-looking set of modules. They're currently in preview, but they are fully cross-platform already and work against the Graph REST APIs rather than using, you know, more Windows-specific logic. So definitely check out Microsoft Graph, and yes, the goal is to get all modules there. Insofar as they make sense, but you know, this is takes time. We work with many teams very directly, and you know, you'll see that come to fruition over the course of you know, the next couple months and years.
Excellent, thanks. This is something that I don't have any experience with, so perhaps someone on the panel. How limited is PowerShell support in Windows PE? Has anyone worked with that? I
can take that one as well. Windows PowerShell, you can build into WinPE and is going to work fine. For those that don't know, WinPE is actually don't know what PE stands for, but it's basically, you know, when you boot into a very constrained form of like recovery Windows on a USB stick or something like that. We do have a number of customers that drop PowerShell Core 6 and PowerShell 7 directly into that WinPE environment. They use tools like the ADT or MDT is like the deployment toolkit for building WinPE golden images. And you can drop those things in and they work just great. So yeah, PowerShell and WinPE all the way.
Okay, excellent. And then another question that we got on the tech communities. I'll direct this one at randomize. Okay, Kyle, if you could make one closed source module open source, which one would it be?
Oh, that's such a softball. I would absolutely make PowerCLI, you know, the VMware set of modules open source. I would, you know, that it doesn't really do much on the Microsoft side because it, you know, it's a third-party set of modules, but that would be one that I would love to see end up being open to the community for all those, you know, different sets of contributions, you know, even down to just documentation would be amazing.
Excellent, thank you. Do you have any wishes there, Don?
I'd love to see SQL Server module. Absolutely. To be able to bring all the powerful data community in to making that work better, to be fair, would be brilliant.
How about you, Bonnie? Do you have any modules that you would like to see open source?
Teams. I'd like to see those integrations. I know there's some vendors that might not be as, you know, welcomed or whatever, but it'd be awesome if they just opened it up so that you know, because Teams is a great tool. I think we love it. So go Teams.
Excellent. So I've been seeing a couple of questions about this already. So when will PS Core will be built into Windows Server? And a follow up on that one also, when will it be part of WSUS?
Yeah, I was hoping I had missed that one. That's or maybe I was hoping I had missed that one. Maybe. No, I kid. So here, the primary issue around PowerShell 7, and I saw an explanation in one of the questions there in the chat that unfortunately is not totally accurate. The number one reason, in fact, the sole reason why PowerShell 7 is not in Windows today is not because they can't exist side by side. It's actually because of the support lifecycle of .NET. So we depend on .NET 5 today for PowerShell 7.1. We depend on .NET Core 3.1 for PowerShell 7.0. And the LTS.NETs outside of framework are limited to 3-year support lifecycle. Windows SKUs are generally 5-year support lifecycles and often include an additional 5 years of extended support. So, you know, while Windows PowerShell, .NET Framework are supported for the full extent of that 5 + 5 years or even longer, if you're, you know, for instance, putting your 2008 R2 VM into Azure, we can't support a version of PowerShell without moving between major versions of .NET for longer than 3 years. Now, as a result of that, we're trying to lower the bar more and more to including PowerShell inside of your images. So one of the things we did very recently was we shipped the latest PowerShell 7 previews in the store, the Microsoft Store. So Windows 10 clients are able to download and update, you know, through all of their sort of Intune and store workflows that integrate there. And the goal is eventually to get PowerShell 7 into the download catalog as well, which means that it will be very easily addable and installable and managed and updated, et cetera, via WSUS, via SCCM, and, you know, with all your sort of golden image building tools that integrate with the download catalog, as well as the Microsoft Update, which is that little box in Windows Update that says allow updates from other Microsoft products in Windows Update. I don't have an ETA on that today. It will likely not be within this calendar year. Unfortunately, it's a significant amount of work to make sure that MSIs update cleanly, but it is something that is an extremely high priority for us. And in the long term, you know, we're going to explore any kind of creative possible ways that we can get PowerShell 7 even beyond the download catalog and into Windows SKUs and various Windows additions and builds that may not be impacted by that 5 + 5 year life cycle. So stay tuned for that, and, you know, totally hear you that that's, you know, the number one thing that we hear from PowerShell folks, and is something that is absolutely my top of mind in P0. Just has taken a little bit longer than we expected, unfortunately.
Excellent. I also got a shout out here, not so much a question. Someone would like to thank whoever's responsible for making PowerShell open source and available for Linux, ARM64. So I think that's you and Sydney.
Yeah, that was something that was not easy to make a business case for when we started that work, probably 3 or 4 years ago. But we said one day people are really going to want this, and it turns out they did. So yay us.
Excellent. And there's some general questions about how close does the PowerShell team work with the different teams within Microsoft when they develop their modules.
So it varies wildly. You know, for instance, I have basically a weekly sync with the folks in Azure PowerShell. We're very, very close. You know, some of these things are unfortunately dictated by organizational lines, although Azure PowerShell in particular, we happen to sit very far away from them, but we're still very, very close relationship with that team. But we have taken a much more active role in the last 1 or 2 years in driving the module development on other teams. We've helped teams port their stuff to PowerShell Core. Sometimes we've actually done the work for them. Active Directory, the on-prem one, was a great example of that. We're working very closely with folks in Office 365. We actually worked very closely with Azure PowerShell in the original AZ switchover that got us cross-platform support. And, you know, we have a number of Windows teams even today that continue to reach out to us for best practices when they, you know, want to add a new parameter, a new commandlet, and that sort of thing. So, you know, really depends. And a lot of the time, what you tell us is what, you know, we go and find that team and we go drive a lot of the feedback that we're getting from the folks in the community. So, I've heard as of late that, maybe there's some improvements possibly with the Teams module. We all love Teams. I think Teams is phenomenal. And that module is, great in many ways, but there's some improvements to be made. And so, at some point I need to find some folks in the Teams team and reach out to them and give some of that feedback. So, we do a lot of that, and we're looking to do more of it in the future.
And if people have feedback on how those modules and commandlets work, what's the best way to submit that?
You can always follow the standard method, which is to complain to me and Sydney and Steve Lee and PowerShell team on Twitter. However, the thing that ultimately is going to give us the ammunition to really go drive the kind of change that you want to see within those teams is to use the proper feedback channels for the product that you're looking to improve that PowerShell module. So I could have said that sentence better, but if it's teams that you'd like to see improvements on, find the team's user voice or use the send feedback in Teams. If it's a module in Windows, use the Windows feedback tool. You can always do both of these things, but when they hear those things from real customers and there's a groundswell underneath that, it's much more likely that you're going to see that change.
Excellent. So we're starting to reach the end of the session. So I'd like to give everyone, I'd like to take one more question and then give everyone 20 seconds to do a shout out for whatever they think is cool or what they worked on or whatever you want to shout out. So I'll give everyone a minute to think of that while we do the last question. Let's take a look. What do we have? Oh yeah, that's a good one. Do you see any traction on PowerShell 7 and PowerShell 6 installations on non-Windows OSs? Do you have any statistics or anything to share? Either.
Oh, is this directed at me? I thought you were
no, Joey or Sydney. I think Sydney's been quiet for a while. Maybe Sydney, you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah, I can take this one. So definitely you can check out some of our statistics in our public Power BI dashboard if you want to take a closer look. That's aka.ms/PS GitHub BI. And so you should be able to find our statistics there. But what you'll see is that over the last few months, we've seen tremendous growth of PowerShell 7. And that really is the primary PowerShell 6 Plus version that's being used today. And you'll also see that we have a ton of Linux usage, which is really great to see. Not currently in that dashboard, maybe potentially if we can get the permissions approved in the future, I'd love to have some of our VS Code telemetry as well, because that also paints a really interesting picture for us, because we see about 10% of our users are actually on macOS as well, as a significant portion on Linux. And of course, that's balanced out by our Windows users as well.
Okay, thank you. We have 1 minute left, so it will be quick shout outs. Rob, what's your shout out?
My shout out is to live share in VS Code. Fantastic way to be able to interact across worldwide and code on the same piece of code.
Excellent. Bonnie?
My shout out is to the PowerShell team. Thanks for all you do.
Excellent. Kyle? You're still muted, Kyle.
Try that again. All right. Shout out to, again, everybody on the Visual Studio Code team for all the improvements that they're doing. Tyler and crew that are doing all the work to the PowerShell integrations. Just a fantastic experience. If you're not using it, check out VS Code.
Excellent. With that one, Joey, Sydney, do you have any shout outs?
I'll just shout out all the people who open GitHub issues in all of our repos, because they make such a big difference in us identifying where the pain points are and solving those.
Yep, okay. Adding on that, everybody that ships us code contributions, pull requests, you're amazing. We could not build PowerShell without you. Shout out to you, Bonnie, for shouting us out. We cannot do this without you in the community. And the Active Directory module works on 1809 plus. Go and use it. Use PowerShell 7. Active Directory works fine. Trust me, it really does. AKMS/PS module compat. Look it up.
Very stable.
All right, thank you very much. We're at time, so we'll continue the discussion on the Microsoft Tech discussion. And thanks to everyone joining and moderating this session. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jaap.
Thanks, Jaap.